Good afternoon. This is Bar Torah on Parshas Yitro. It is the Parsha where, to summarize, it's fairly easy. Yitro, Moshe's father-in-law, comes with Moshe's wife and two children. They, all the elders and Aaron go and eat with him. He watches how Moshe judges. And he notices that he's judging from morning to night with everybody standing in front of him. And Yitro says that that's not a good system because it was exhausting for both the people and Moshe himself. And he came up with another system where you have a system of courts and only the most important decisions come to him. You had a system where there were literally thousands of judges, and it showed how contentious the people were. Now, why was Yitro that came up with this? Because he saw that the people who were coming in front of Moshe weren't interested in learning the Torah and what Hashem's will was. They were interested in either winning their case. So, in other words, and only somebody who was from outside the people, this is why Moshe and Aaron couldn't detect it. As explained by my teacher, Rav Uziel Malevsky, Zikman Sadek Lebracha. And it then goes on for the preparation of reciting the Seros Adibros. The Jews accept it unconditionally in Israel, even though they have no idea what's in it. And this is going to be the famous statement later on, Nasa B'nishma, we shall do and we shall hear. In other words, they took it on faith, which none of the other nations did. The Seros Adibros then proclaimed, and it ends with the building of the altar. And this is the Parsha in summary. Now, what I would like to focus on today is the beginning of the receive for the Seros Adibros, and it says, "Deber Elokim et kol hadavarim ha'ela lemor." Then it goes on next pasuk, "Ani Hashem Elokecha." And the question is, why do we have this double language? Why should it first say Elohim, which is one name of Hashem, and then in the first of the Seros Adibros, it goes over 10 Commandments. It goes to the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Now, one answer that is given is that the Elohim usually represents strict justice, the attributes of strict justice, strict judgment, and at the same time, the next one is saying the name Yud Kei Vav Kei shows Hashem's chesed and mercy, and it shows that both men needed there, as the Orach Chaim explains elsewhere, not on this pasuk but elsewhere. Why did you have to have this? Because in our relationship to Hashem, we must have God. We must have two things. The first thing we must have is yira, fear of Hashem. That in other words, a punishment, because no matter how righteous the person is, they still got to keep that in mind. And the second one is to have awe of Hashem. In other words, realize how great He is and how minor we are, though He's created the whole universe for our benefit, for us to learn Torah. Still, we have to recognize that because He is so great and He's done so many things for us, we need to respect Him. That's on one level of how you can understand it. Now, on another level, it's telling us something else, because you have to look at the wording. It says "V'deber Elokim et kol devarim," and then it goes in to start stating what these statements are. Now, it sounds like almost there's two discussions here. There's one where it says Hashem said all these things, and then it starts proclaiming, specifying the different of the Seros Adibros. Now, something that Yerushalayim takes that is fundamental here is that really Hashem said it twice. The first time Hashem said all of the Aseros Adibros simultaneously. There was no beginning, like when we read linearly. We cannot express all things simultaneously, and yet they're all at the same time. That's something that only Hashem can achieve. And this is the reason it says Elohim, because it has two meanings. It has one meaning of strict justice. It has another meaning of greatness. So only Hashem, with his greatness, was able to achieve that kind of achievement. And then none of the people could understand anything Hashem said when he said it at that level. Then he started to say it again, and one at a time. The people heard the first two, but it was made such an impact that Neshumas left the body, and Hashem had to resurrect them. And therefore it says, Hashem said two utterances at once. What's the distinction? One is talking what he did first. When he was actually speaking to the whole people at Sinai, he said the first two to them, then they died and were resurrected. And only then could the other 8 of the commandments be said. And at that point, even though they were no longer being spoken directly by Hashem, Hashem made a miracle that Moshe would hear it from him. He was the only one who could handle it. And then miraculously, his voice projected to the entire camp, 600,000 men, and with the women and children, you're looking at 3.5 to 4 million people. And at that time, all the rest of the Aseros Dibros, the angels were sent, created, Hashem's words turned into angels, and the angels addressed each person separately of whether he or she would accept it, and they all accepted each one of the commandments, one after the other. Now, that is what happened. Now, to truly understand this did not start with the Aseros Dibrot, because the Aseros Dibros, the Hashem's 10 commandments, parallel the 10 sayings with which Hashem created the world, and it was ultimate goal, to give the Torah to the world, for us to learn Torah and perfect the world, lead the other nations into perfecting the world. So we get this Zman HaMashiach, the final redemption, Messiah. Now, if one looks in Sefer Bereshis, it then says, very famous first pasuk, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim vad aretz. In the beginning of God created the heaven and the earth. It's also translated in the beginning of his creation, the heaven and earth. Now, what was the order of creation here? When you read the story plainly, it then says Hashem said 10 expressions, which would come under the Seos or Bradibro, and it says, let there be light, Vihi Or, that's the famous, and then they go on. Now, from that, it sounds like Hashem made 10 utterances at 10 different times throughout the 6 days of creation. Actually, it's far more complex than that. And the reason it says Elohim rather than Hashem created the world is a number of reasons. One, because he wanted to create a universe with strict justice, but he realized it would not survive, which is a topic for another discussion. But in any event, it would not survive. So therefore, what did he do? He means, again, paralleling what we said about the Seros Dibros, the 10 Commandments, it also allows it to mean Hashem's great power, his authority, his majesty. And what happened here? Hashem, at the very beginning of creation, with the first letter, created absolutely everything that was or would be in the universe. Now, what does that mean? It means that with one utterance only, Hashem created everything, which then raises another question. If Hashem then created everything there, what's the rest of this Ma'aser Bereshit, the story of creation? And it explains that, yes, everything was created, because it's all derived from the Torah, but it was disorganized. Now, when I say disorganized, in other words, Hashem hadn't set it up in the order we're familiar with. Nothing Hashem does is disorganized. It was all part of his master plan. And gradually, over the next 6 days, creation, he brought them out one by one on their appropriate day. And now, why did he do it that way? Why didn't he simply set it up on the first day? As it explained in Pirkei Avos, with Ethics of the Fathers, Wisdom of the Fathers, that Hashem could have created the world with one saying, but he created with 10 sayings to punish, first of all, the Rishoyim, the evil ones, who would try to destroy the world and universe he created, and also to reward the Tzaddikim that maintain and help build the people who learn Torah to maintain that world. So they'll get 10 times the reward, while the others will get 10 times the punishment. Now, that being the case, and again, when he made that first utterance and created everything was created simultaneously. All this, the whole words of that first the statement creation, all occurred at the same time, something that is beyond our ability to do. Now, having said that, that's one meaning. I'd like to address another meaning here that's also brought by the Or HaChaim, is we talk about these different names of Hashem, but he said, but based on a pasuk in Malachim, Kings, Malachim, it says there that Hashem Elohim, Hashem is God. This quality of strict justice, the quality of mercy, everything is from Hashem, because there's a fundamental question here. We have all these different names of Hashem, and we see later when connection with the Aseros Adibros, Moshe says in the Varim, Deuteronomy, chapter 4, verse 35, that God created, did these to show you that Hashem is Elokein Ein Milvado. Rashi explains the upper worlds and the lower worlds all unified at that spot, and that everything is a unity. And this raises another question. It sounds like almost chas v'shalom, God forbid, there's a multiplicity of gods, but there isn't. This is when we use the different names, Elohim, Adonu, Havaya, which is Yud K Vav K, they're all aspects of a united God. Now, Hashem himself is a unity in his essence, which we don't talk about, but he's a unity. So why these different expressions? This was all done for us, for his creations, so that we could have some method, some sense of connecting to him in a way that we could relate, because his essence nobody can relate to. And therefore, he did this for our benefit, because before there was a creation, when it was just the infinite himself, he didn't need a name. The names reflect his qualities. And we should keep this in mind, taking it even one step further, that all of the names and derived from the Torah, and everything that's in this universe is derived from the words of Torah. So even though we're talking about different expressions, there's an absolute unity. Hashem is guiding everything towards the ultimate goal, which is the final redemption and beyond. And in these challenging times when we're seeing everything that's happening and the news is literally changing almost minute to minute, what we have to understand that as Hashem is operating all this from behind the scenes, and our job is to seek him out and see his greatness and see what he's doing for us, and that everything is heading towards the final redemption. May we see it soon. Good Shabbos and Shabbat Shalom.